From Provo, Utah, this is the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast with your hosts, Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss. This is Ultima Final Fantasy.
Welcome to another episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. I am your host, Caleb.
And I am Joe.
And today we are going to be talking about one of the sweetest questions we've actually had in quite a while. It's going to be a nice, loose episode of Ultima Final Fantasy based on the question, which will come first? Which, of course, we will talk about when the time comes. But before we dive into this grand query from one of our wonderful listeners.
So grand, epic.
Yeah, very epic. Where are you in Final Fantasy XIV, Joe?
Oh, just behind you, Schweiss. I'm still in the same area I was in last week, basically, except like 2 quests up from there. I do remember that barely I was having trouble with this quest where I had to dress up as an Imperial soldier and do a Imperial salute, and I don't know what was happening. I just could not find in my clothing inventory for my character all of the pieces, and so I was freaking out. And then I think someone on the stream told you to tell me to check my other inventory space, and so I did, and I luckily did have that uniform. So I remember quitting that angrily, probably at the end of last week, not really revisiting it till Wednesday, and I barely played any 14 this week. I've just been starting this new job. I've just been pretty swamped. Hopefully it won't stay like that for very long, but that's how it is. So we're going to try to make up for it yesterday as you're listening to this, or tomorrow as we're recording, as we do another 14 hours of 14.
Yeah, these marathons are a bit of a tradition with us. I mean, it didn't really start, I guess, until... Did we ever do it?
The 2 times we've done it?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Did we ever do it for 11? I don't think we did we?
No.
I mean, not intentionally. We probably had days where we played pretty fucking close to 11 hours of 11, but it wasn't like an official stream.
Probably.
So I think 13 was actually the first time we did it. So I guess there's that. And then you did a 7 hours of Dirge of Cerberus Final Fantasy VII stream, which might have been more like 8. But yeah, it's kind of a cool thing, and I really had a lot of. I feel like we made good progress last time with our 14 hours of 14. And like Joe said, I'm only a little bit ahead of him. I made it to a new zone, and I've just kind of been collecting the ether currents for that zone as I do a couple of the.
I don't know why you're doing it, dude. I think it's a total waste of time to collect those ether currents.
I don't know.
Why are you doing it?
Because achievements, achievements.
Is there a trophy?
No, but I do get to fly in a zone that I might not come back to ever. But if I do,
exactly. By the time you've had enough time to clear all those ether currents on these huge areas, you've done all the main quests in that area. You don't need to go back.
I've gone back once. I went back to the big Ruby.
Nice to fly for a little
Ruby
while.
Sea area once since this, so not completely.
Is there any area in this expansion that is not a big sea area?
Yeah, the next area is not a big sea area.
Oh, okay. I guess I haven't gotten to it then.
It's a plains kind of thing, like a rocky outer edge. I haven't explored all of it yet, but yeah, I'm grabbing the ether currents there. I think the levels of quests I'm at now, I believe they're 65, 64, 65, something like that. So it feels like, level-wise, we feel like we're about halfway done. These 14-hour marathons do help, but I think last time's wasn't quite as lucrative for the Stormblood, just because we had so many dungeons that we were diving into.
We won't have those. I didn't think about that. That's ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe we will be able to finish it.
Yeah, what if we do, though? I mean, we did say that we were going to do all of the trials and...
Oh, we got to do trials.
And the raids. I don't know about the trials.
Can you actually listen to Crinitol and unsync it, please?
If we do that, then it's just going to be a joke, though.
Yeah, but at least we did it.
Yeah, but it's not doing it if we did it not the way it was done.
I don't think I could try doing that Ultima's Bait again, dude. That was rough.
Yeah, that was a very rough fight.
Yeah, we ran out of time, basically. We had like 10 minutes left, and we knew we were going to do it.
Yeah, plus we hit the 14 hours, and we were like, all right, well, see you guys. Fucking done. We're out of here, so no more. It's 14 hours and 1 minute, and I'm out. Fuck this. So, I don't know. What do you want to do for tomorrow? Do you want to try to do one of those big raids, one of those big dungeons? Like maybe I can quickly unlock the Bahamut trials, and we can run through that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do a couple of those at least. We'll do a trial or a raid every 2 hours. Is that how we did it last time?
Well, it was, but I don't know. The raids are not the dungeons. They do take longer, from what I've heard.
They take longer than a dungeon.
Yeah. There are like multiple coils of Bahamut.
Well, let's start out the day in the queue for that one raid. Something of the ancients.
Oh yeah, I think I still need to do a couple things to unlock that.
Oh my god!
But we can do that.
Me,
I'm sorry, man.
Spending all this time on these aetherites.
Yeah, these ether currents. Yeah,
ether currents.
Man,
you're not even going to use. Oh,
5 achievement points a pop, man. I had to try to catch up to your ass, but it didn't work. Joe outed me for the monthly achievement point competition through our free company. It was a disgrace.
Did that give me anything?
I have no idea what they do for it. We just chose the name for it and let other people lead it in our stead. People who play the game, other than like once every 2 years, like you and I. So yeah, we're probably about halfway through Stormblood. Looking forward to seeing what the future holds for it. I do think we should try to do at least Labyrinth of the Ancients, and fuck it, man. Let's just do it unsynced, unsynced, so we can just nuke the thing.
Just make Brenadol happy.
And it's sad because on one hand, I do want to do it the right way, which to me is the original way. But if we get to the new content, we'll be able to do that with the new stuff anyway, and there is no level sync to your current item level and equipment, so we'll get to experience it once we get up to whatever it is right now. I think it's like Omega or something. I haven't seen it in the chat.
That, man.
I'm not sure. It's all a blur because 11 and 14 have similar baddies. Obviously, like Alexander and Bahamut are big across the series, so it's all just one soup, one MMO soup. And whatever new bad guy exists, we'll try to do the trial for him.
Yeah.
The right way, I guess.
It's funny, because I'm a white mage, whenever I play dungeons or trials, there's very little time I'm actually looking at what's going on the map. Even though that has screwed me over a few times with some badly dodged AoEs and Crinitol saying, get to the wall, and I didn't see a wall anywhere. So, sometimes it's a problem, but as a white mage, I'm looking at the upper left-hand corner of the screen where everybody's health meters are at. That's basically where I'm spending my time.
Right.
And so sometimes I hardly see the boss. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, you don't even know what it looks like. I wonder if that's why you're like, I don't remember anything about this. I'm like, we did this yesterday.
Yeah, I remember health bars pretty well.
Yeah, you're like, I remember that one time you almost died, but then you didn't. Yeah,
I was healing you.
That's the white mage at the bar, trying to tell somebody a story. Hey, there was this one time where I had this group of dudes that I met up with to do this quest with, and yeah, I kept them all alive. Well, what happened? What did the bad guy at the end of the dungeon look like? Yeah, I don't know, but the tank almost died a bunch of times, but I kept them alive because I was on the ball.
Yeah, so the regular parts of the regular dungeons are so dull to me, but the boss fights where there's a lot of dodging and stuff that actually gets me into the game, and looking past the health bars is a lot funner. And I say boring, to me, it's not really boring. It's just sometimes I wish the dungeons were shorter. Because all I'm doing is looking at health bars, and occasionally I'll target a bad guy if I know we're doing well.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
It's kind of how it is at this point. I do wonder if other white mages are still only looking in the top left-hand corner of the screen, or what. Or if it's just me.
I don't know, man. I tried to do a daily as a white mage the other day, and it pulled up I can't remember what the dungeon is, but it's that one that's from 1.0. You remember the one that's like in that cave and you got all the Marlboros and it's green and shit? Mm-hmm. I got that one, and my gear was not good enough as white mage. I couldn't do the dungeon. Like, a couple people left, and then I just abandoned the queue. I was like, I can't do this, dude. So I'm going to have to go through and spend some of my tomes and actually do maintenance on my white mage if I'm going to play it anymore, because it's just too awful. Like, I got turned away. I got shut down real fucking fast. And I wasn't even at a boss. It was just a normal pull. I just couldn't heal enough. So I can't I can't do that shit anymore. It's sad, dude. Not getting the main quest items for the class really fucks it.
Yeah, man, I've hardly had any time to play this week. It's been real tough.
Yeah. Well, Thankfully tomorrow we've got this tremendous 14-hour marathon plan.
It's honestly to make up for lost time in many respects. I gotta get some time to play Noir or whatever that new game is.
Nier Automata.
Nier Automata, that's right.
Yeah.
I don't know why I called it Noir. That's a different game.
Definitely is.
So guys, if you want to follow us on the show, you can go to ultimatefinalfantasy.com, which is our website. If you want to support the show, there's an Amazon link there. You can click through, get your Amazon stuff. We get a small kickback. There's also a Patreon page if you want to support us there. Thank you very much to our Patreon donors. And there's a PayPal link if you want to join the forums. That's where you ask the questions. And this show is where you get the answers. But you can also follow us individually on Twitter if you want. I'm at Joseph Agolier.
I'm at UFF Podcast.
And we also have some other shows you should be aware of. Nude Clan, which is an amazing video game show where, of course, we had to play Nier Automata, all of us. And the Godzilla Podcast, where me and Drew Daybell do a commentary over each Godzilla movie in the series, and we're almost to the halfway point with those. It's kind of exciting. And then kind of like almost to the halfway point with this podcast. And then what is that show that may or may not be still going?
Super sexy swinging fan fiction. Jacob and I reading erotic fan fiction occasionally, of course.
And yeah. Well, Schweiss, you want to talk about some news?
Yeah, let's dive into that. I've got a few things.
News.
Is it done?
Yes.
If you're at home wondering why, I can't hear the jingles come through on this thing, so there's like a silence as I'm waiting for it. It's really awkward and really terrible. But it is absolute utter silence. I hear nothing. I absolutely hear nothing. So I don't know when the jingle's ending or when it's going. I had to play it in my head. We have very few pieces of news this week. Shinru gave us the news, of course, and he actually, writes a small little article every week on our website, by the way. So if you want to check that out, that'd be great. But anyway, very little news this week. Basically, there's some new stuff for for Dissidia Arcade. And then there's a Final Fantasy XV multiplayer beta that began testing 2 days before we started recording. So that was one of the things. So hop on that if you have a time machine. And then the last piece of news is there's a new patch for FF14, which of course we don't cover patch notes.
Nah, you can find that elsewhere.
So very empty for news. I almost feel like they're clearing the space for something bigger.
You think so?
I don't know, possibly.
This is like a big plan to clear the slate for FF7 remake.
Seems like last year we were having so much news, and then it's finally slowing down.
Well, that's true, but I mean, the big mainline game was released, so we did get Final Fantasy 15. I mean,
we did.
Not that they're not working on other projects, but other Final Fantasy projects. 7 remake doesn't seem to be very far along, so I can see why there wouldn't be much to talk about. It is nuts though, because like you said, like even earlier in the show, we had a lot of news, like just on 14 stuff, like weird housing crises and random studios getting shut down for fan translations of games that were later released on PlayStation 4. Like crazy stuff, but yeah, I don't know, man. We need.
It's okay. I'm okay with a little bit of a break.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess news means more games technically. So, and not that the games aren't usually great. There are definitely the dirge of Cerberuses in there, or Cerberi, and the fucking Revenant Wings, the bottom of the barrel. So hopefully, if they do come out with anything soon, it's not along those lines. But God, who knows?
Did we get some comments on our last episode on the villains of Final Fantasy? I guess it's been a little while since that one. But we also have one on the side quest. So actually, I kind of want to read some comments real quick. Since we're kind of doing a loosey-goosey episode. Felicia Nomiko says that her top 3 villains are number 3, Kefka, number 2, Arden, and number 1, Sephiroth, which sounds familiar to me.
Very.
She says Arden and Sephiroth were tough, but Sephiroth edged it out with just more backstory and more crazy. I still really love 15. Thank you. Another Phil of 15 lover. I appreciate that. Still number 3 in my top list. Number 3. Wow. I can't remember which ones Felicia Nomiko has been, but you know. Screw the haters. One of the best stories in FF. Simpler is a hell of a lot easier to follow. And I shed tears at the end. Yeah, could have been better, but what it is now is still really good. And then Chase versus Game, the new avatar for Chase.
Yeah.
Says number 3, Garland. See, there we go. I don't think Caleb Craig would be happy to hear that.
No, most certainly not.
Number 2, Arden, and number 1, Sephiroth. Says, we can understand why Sephiroth is there, and I love Arden's character as he is like, in some sense, a less crazy Sephiroth. Has good reasons for effing with everyone. The only reason Sephiroth wins is due to a scene in the library of the mansion in the fire scene. Just too damn good. Finally, Garland is there because I like his play in FF1. He created a time loop to be immortal. He's also there at the end of the game, yet the heroes of life become forgotten. Interesting ending.
All right, fair.
Pretty consistent. It's unusual to see Garland up so high on someone's list, Chase. That's
yeah.
But, you know, I think he's important at least.
Yeah, he's a classic one, so I get it. It's just like some people have FF1 really high on their list. Like, I don't think you can argue that it's technically better than much of the series, but it does have its place. So I don't know if it's necessarily nostalgia or just like respect. Or maybe even just like a shoe-in for the Oscars kind of a thing. Who knows? Like, oh, well, it's not his best movie, but the last one was, so let's give it to him for this one.
Are you talking about Leo DiCaprio's?
No, I'm okay with him winning for Revenant. He's pretty awesome in that movie.
Yeah, he is pretty awesome in that movie.
But it's more along the lines of Martin Scorsese. Like, I think The Departed is a 5-star movie, personally. But I do think he has better movies other than The Departed. And
that is better than a 5-star movie?
What?
Coming from you? Better than a 5-star movie?
Yeah. I mean, it's still 5 stars, but Goodfellas is definitely a better 5 stars.
I love them both to death. Yeah, I don't understand the reaction to that Departed at all. I've heard a lot of people kind of like undercut The Departed as being like we better give Scorsese his Oscar finally.
Well, I feel like
I'm
they
like,
do that.
That movie is great.
It is, but it's a remake, so like it loses a lot that way. But I do think it is a great one. It's just I feel like Raging Bull.
It's so much fun to watch. Raging Bull is not as much fun to watch. Goodfellas is still fun to watch.
Yeah, that's fair. I know. I see what you're saying, but it's like
Raging Bull is like, it's like Schindler's List. It's not that dark, but like it's like, okay, I'm gonna watch this and I won't have to watch this for another 10 years. I'm good.
Yeah.
I think I could watch The Departed about once a week and never get bored of it.
That's true. I do enjoy it quite a bit, but it feels kind of like that though. Even then, like he has better stuff, but didn't win for the better stuff. So now he's gonna win for another really good one. That's not, to me, it's not quite as great. We do have one on the Final Fantasy side quests. Greg says, "Ooh, can't wait to listen to this one while I'm delivering mail tomorrow." Well, bam, we got a fellow deliverer of mail in the middle of FF12 International Job System HD Remaster. Whew, my mouth is tired. And enjoying those side quests. Glad you are, man. They're still great in the remastered version, and I would say even better at ×4 speed. Because nothing is bad at ×4 speed, unless of course you hit like a confused trap and you just waste your teammates. Then that's kind of shitty. But
have you beaten that thing yet?
No, dude, I haven't had time. I've been pulled away by Nier and Final Fantasy XIV, so
wow,
haven't had a chance to finish up 12. It's unfortunate. It hurts. Feels like it's been out for so long, and I've barely even scraped the surface of that platinum that I'm going to be working on.
Yeah, how many games can you play at once? Still have time to live.
2.
Or do you?
I don't really. I don't know. It's like a sad existence lately. Just trying to grind. And it sucks because for a Nude Clan, we keep track of how many games we've beaten throughout the year. It's kind of like one of the staples of the show, like our own little pissing contest of geekery, right? So, but we don't have MMOs counting in that list. So most of my time is basically going into something that's not even going to count in the end for one of my podcasts. Now it does count for UFF, which is of course a very important show in my mind. It does count towards my completion of the FF series, but all these guys around me playing games, getting their Nude Clan hog up, and I'm just stuck in 14. But nice. Yeah.
So I kind of have what we're going to do this week is kind of an off-topic sort of a deal. So I think we used to do every 50 episodes we would do a state of the podcast, and I think we totally skipped that on episode 150. We also skipped saying, hey, we passed the 3-year mark. So both those things I think we should address just a little bit today. Something I did last week was I created this Geekdom Entertainment LLC survey, or not last week, but a couple weeks ago. And we had 60 people vote on this thing. And Geekdom Entertainment, as you might know, is like the overall dealio for all of our podcasts. They all kind of go under this loose umbrella called Geekdom Entertainment, which is a real company as of a couple weeks ago. Anyway, so the first question I asked was, what shows do you listen to regularly? And these were people that either followed us on Twitter. I say us as in the Nude Clan guys, or they were on the Discord channel or checked out the forums. And 91.67% of people who were on those things were Ultima Final Fantasy listeners, compared to Nude Clan at 80%, which was a lot higher than I expected, Super Sexy at 20%, and the Godzilla podcast, my own private little group of followers, 15% of votes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was that kind of follows download numbers, except Nude Clan is really high in the percentages. So I feel like people who listen to Nude Clan are people who are really into us.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other stuff.
Yeah, so if you like us and not just Final Fantasy, you're not just listening to the show because it's Final Fantasy, you should totally check out the other ones. They're good.
Yeah, in fact, the biggest, you should totally check out the other ones thing is even though, Ultimate Final Fantasy had 91% of people, what they listen to, I put the second question is, out of the shows you listen to, what is your favorite? And Ultimate Final Fantasy was only 50% twice.
Oh, wow. So
91% of the people who did the survey listened to Ultimate Final Fantasy. Only 50% of all the people, they actually, Final Fantasy was their favorite. Nude Clan comes up pretty close at 40%. And then Godzilla Podcast and Super Sexy are tied at 5%.
Yeah. I'm only hurt by one of those because I'm not in there. At least
why would I be hurt by that?
No, I'm hurt by it and not you.
Oh, okay. I'll see, look, if I click on the Godzilla Podcast, though, Godzilla Podcast favoritism goes up to 33%. So there you go.
Oh.
It's a lot higher if you actually listen to that show. Yeah, Nude Clan. Man, more people need to listen to that show. I'm really proud of that thing.
Yeah, it's good. It's a lot of fun. We just did a review today on Wing Commander, the classic 99 film, so check that shit out. Should be out by now. Anyway, yeah, the big question that was brought up to us this week, it's I do think it's one of the best questions we've had on the forums in a while. It's kind of a meta question, honestly, but I still really dig it. It is, which will come first? So, our good man Rob Lennon writes, in your guys' honest opinion, and in the forum's opinion, which will come first? Either A, your review episode for Bravely Second, essentially finishing your list of games, or B, the release of Final Fantasy XVI. Quick gut reaction, Joe. Which one do you think is going to come first?
Honestly, I think that our review of our final game, whether or not it's Bravely Second or Bravely Third, if that ever comes out, I think that will probably come first. And I'm only basing that upon Final Fantasy XV's release time between it being announced as 15.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 2.5 years, right?
Yeah, it's been a little while, yeah.
So I do wonder, we don't even know if they're really working on 16. We had an article a while ago that Final Fantasy 15, basically the company was betting the future of the Final Fantasy series on the success of Final Fantasy 15. And so were they even, if they were actually doing that seriously, if that was a serious thing, was anybody working on 16 at that point? That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, technically that would imply that they were pulling out all the stops, everybody was hitting 15, and there was nothing left over. And then, like they said, based on the success of 15, that will be the series' future. And of course, 15 killed it in sales, as we all know. So clearly there will be a 16, but that does heavily imply that they hadn't started working on anything quite yet. I'm going to honestly have to agree with you on the number one answer A, that our review of Bravely Second, or whatever the final game on our list will come before Final Fantasy 16. I mean, 15 took forever to come out. Even if you just look at 14's release date compared to 15's release date, even if we're not even talking versus 13, it's still quite the window. I mean, original Final Fantasy 14, when was that? 2014, something like that?
Something like that. So, there was only a 1 year gap between 13 and 14, though. So it is different than the 14 to 15 gap, which is 6 years, which is nuts. So I think if you're ready, Schweiss, we were going to try to see, So I believe that this podcast, we're almost to the halfway mark, and then the future games after 14 are shorter games for the most part. So I'm believing that if we do the games at the same pace we've been doing, which hopefully we'll be able to pace it up a little bit for a little while. If we do the games at the same pace we've been doing, it will take us 3 more years to finish this podcast.
Okay.
So it'll be 2014 to 2020 as far as this podcast run goes, which is insane to me. It's a lot longer than I had originally planned, to say the least. So let's say 2020. Within the year 2020 is the mark of the end of UFF. I actually, not that I want to end this show, but that I want to just get this goal done with. I do want it done earlier than that, if it's possible. That's why this 14 hours of 14 is happening as well.
Right.
It's like, let's get Stormblood out of the way and move on to the next thing. So the timeline of release years for Final Fantasy, we're going to put this into an Excel sheet, and we're going to see how many years on average Final Fantasy goes, and like kind of what our graph line is for like what is our average amount of time for the next Final Fantasy. So in the first column, we're going to put which game it is. So FF1, and then in the second column, we're going to put how many years it took in between the previous release. So for FF1, we'll just say 1 because it took them 1 year to make. FF2, I would also say 1 because, it also took a year to make. Actually, a day less than a year, right? Before it came out. That was that one day where they would have figured out the stat mining method.
Right.
Okay, so Final Fantasy 2, 2 years between 2 and 3. Then for 3, 4, and 5, they took 1 year each. 5 to 6 took 2 years. 6 to 7 took 3 years. So that's a little different. 7 to 8 took 2 years.
Okay, wait. So okay. One you gave me 1 year because it took a year to make. And now 1 to 2 is going to be 1 year.
Yeah.
2 to 3 is 2 years. 3 to 4 is a year. 4 to 5 is a year.
5 to 6 is 2.
5 to 6 is 2. Okay.
6 to 7 is 3.
6 to 7 is 3. It's annoying because on the Twitch stream, every time I click one of these numbers, it switches the fucking camera. So it's freaking me out. But anyway, okay. 7 to 8.
Don't use the numpad, man.
I have to. It doesn't matter which. Oh wait, shit. You're right. It does matter. It counts. Well, fuck me.
7 to 8 is 2. 8 to 9 is 1. 9 to 10 is 1. 10 to 11 is 1. Okay. 11 to 12 is 4.
Okay.
That was actually quite a big gap there. But remember, now this is Enix coming in, so I'm wondering we'll probably have to average it out for the Enix games and the Square games separately. So 12 to 13 is 3. Only 3 years. It felt like an eternity from 2006 to 2009.
It did, yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I remember waiting for 13. I'd be like, this is taking forever. And that wasn't even close. Wasn't even close to 15. Okay, 13 to 14 was just 1 year. And then 14 to 15 was, of course, 6 years.
Okay, yeah. And, of course, Final Fantasy XIV coming out only a year after 13. But A Realm Reborn was released. The relaunch was released in 2013, so that did take a little bit of time. So
that'd be 3 years then.
Yeah, 3 years to the...
If you're counting that one, which I don't know if I would.
Not for the purposes of this, no. Sure, 14 failed, but I mean, 13 could have failed, and it still would count in this if it did.
So take that cursor, highlight all the numbers in the number column, and then you're going to get a little plus sign at the bottom.
I got it.
Then you pull it down just one little space. How many years, on average, since the beginning of the series, what would be looking at for 16?
29, 15. So it's got it at 2. On average is 2.
Only 2 years.
Yep.
So it should come out next year.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at 30 years. We're looking at 30 years of games, 30-year anniversary with 15 video games. So it's really quick.
Yeah.
Easy. But if we were to take just since the merger with
FF11,
with what Jacob asked, let's see what we got here. That would be 5 with 15, so that adds another year. So we've got a 3-year gap in between Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 16, if we count it as a Square Enix rather than just a Square/Final Fantasy timeline. I feel like that would be a lot more useful, especially given the fact that I'm looking at the last since 11, and in front of me I have 15 of the 30 years of Final Fantasy in the last 4 games.
That should be right in the mid.
Well, 5 games. It should be. It should be right in the...
Between 7 and 8?
Yeah, it should be between 7 and 8 that we're seeing this mid-tier or middle amount of years for Final Fantasy. So I do feel like if we're gonna use this at all, we have to use it from when Enix took over the company, when they merged.
So that would be 3 years. So this podcast and FF16 should come out at the same time.
According to the numbers we just ran, yeah. If we're looking,
the laws of averages, yeah.
If we're looking at a 3-year thing, and we're halfway done with Ultima Final Fantasy at this point, technically, as long as not a ton of games come out, we've got right at the end of our run Final Fantasy 16. Do you actually see it though? Do you see 16 coming out in 3 years?
I'm concerned that at E3 that they didn't put out a trailer for 16. I realize that the community right now, and I am in the minority, and it's fine if you're excited for this thing. I know that the community right now is super excited for the FF7 remake, and there's a huge part of our community that's also excited for Kingdom Hearts 3. Mm-hmm. So maybe they're just trying to focus on those, and maybe that would be smart as a company to focus on those and kind of clear the way before putting out, another big honking project like FF15 was. Although I do suggest to Square Enix to not spend millions of dollars on a movie that no one will see or like, except for a few people, a handful of people actually like Kingsclave. But I don't know, man. I think they could make a Final Fantasy in 3 years. It's just whether or not they will is a problem.
Yeah, I don't see it happening, honestly. I think Bravely Second will be the last game that we play, and when Final Fantasy 16 comes out, we'll play it, and I, at the very least, plan on doing a review episode for Ultima on that game, but I don't have a single fiber in my body that tells me that 16 is going to be out before the 3 remaining years, quote unquote, of Ultima Final Fantasy. I just don't buy it.
Now, what would it take to do double time on the show to make these games go a little bit faster? Because Schweiss, I gotta say, I was downhearted. I was downhearted the other week, and I think I mentioned this on the show, but I think we were 43 games in, or no, we were just under halfway, and we still had like 40 something games left in this series, and we weren't even halfway. We were like 6 away from the halfway mark, and I just like sunk. I was just like, oh man, I just spent months on Heaven's Word, and now we're going to spend months on Stormblood. I didn't expect this podcast to take this long, I'll be honest. How long did you think it was going to take us to do all this stuff?
I don't know, man. It's not a... Okay, let me kick back here. This isn't something I can discuss in a normal seated manner. I gotta kick my feet up on the table.
Just because it's after midnight, super late.
Yeah, well, mostly that. It's mostly the need to slumber. But
mine is my lower back's killing me because of this chair.
Yeah, same here. But it's not the chair. It's the fact that I've been awake for a long time. But here's the thing. I'm not... when we started Ultima Final Fantasy, our goal was to run through the Final Fantasy mainline games, right? That was the big huzzah, the big thing we wanted to do, because we had so many of these games, so many discs that we had never beaten, that we had never completed. It was just sitting there waiting for a reason to be played, other than the fact that they're fucking awesome. But of course you don't know that until you play the games. And so we sat down and we decided, all right, we're going to do a show. You decided mostly, and I said, yes, I'll go along. Right. And that was it. It was, okay, mainline games. And then very quickly after that, we realized if we're going to do a show weekly, we can't just be doing it on just the games. Like, there are movies, there are shorts, there are narratives, little novellas, all sorts of Final Fantasy stuff. Let's dive into some of that while we're at it. And then we both kind of knew, I think we knew without even talking about it, that we were going to end up doing all of the Final Fantasy games, regardless of their main series status, which, as you all know, we are in the middle of right now. So I think initially I thought maybe a year and a half, and I think that would have been about right for the show if we would have just done mainline stuff. Maybe a couple years. I don't know. It feels like we've been done with the mainline stuff for a while now, but I don't know if we actually have.
Well,
like 14. That was
13. Because 14 was... Or no, I guess 14.
Well, 14 we beat. We finished 2.55... Was it a year and a half ago? I think it was. So we would be a year and a half into the show, and then since then we've just been doing spin-offs and of course more 14 for the last like 4 months of our lives, it feels like. So I would say probably about a year and a half for the show. Obviously that's not nearly enough time to cover everything Final Fantasy, let alone all the games, but I think that's probably about what I had expected it to last. I don't know. What were you thinking in the very beginning?
I don't know, man. I thought maybe it would take 3 years to do all these things. And I do remember having a night where I actually wrote down like the amount of games we had, the amount of time we would usually take, which would be a month for the ones that are under 30 hours, 2 months for the ones that are over 30 hours. That's how it was when I was in school. And then it just got real rough a couple weeks ago, I think. Amerlene, was it Amerlene? Yeah. Amerlene says Joe seems burnt out by now. I do sound more burnt out than I actually am, and it's mostly because I worked 13 hours today. I would like to put that out.
Well, he's burnt out on life at the moment, so keep that in mind, too, while we're talking about this. And it's not a, man, we've been going way longer than we should, let's end it kind of a thing. It's just more of a, what did we expect versus what we've got? I mean, it's not I don't think it's a problem necessarily. I feel like we've taken the amount of time that we deemed necessary for each of the games. I mean, some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. Sometimes shit gets in the way and the episode gets pushed by a week or two. Sometimes we can't beat the final boss. All sorts of shit happens. Like,
yeah, sometimes you can't beat the final boss, and there's
a bit of a delay.
Yeah, just a bit. I'm trying to look for the original post when I put the order that the games will be played in, but the old forum searching for stuff in it is really difficult. So I gotta look for the search term "the order," and then it's making me do like 16 different verifications because I just want to see when we decided that we were gonna do every single one of these games.
Yeah, I don't know. It was an older forum for sure. But yeah, I don't know. I don't regret it at all, though. I mean, I think it's been a great journey here at the almost halfway mark of the series as a whole. And I mean, it's a series that's always adding more entries, so it's not like we lack for content. And one of the great things about the Final Fantasy series for me is the fact that we have games like Dirge of Cerberus and that RTS semi-disaster Revenant Wings, because were they great? Not really. I mean, they are very lacking as games, but it was at least something different, you know? Like, we have something different. We're about to go into a side-scroller beat-em-up as soon as we finish with Stormblood. And then from that, we're going to transition into a turn-based grid RPG from the late 90s. It's crazy the amount of variety that the series has. So I feel like it being constantly revamped and the weird order we've decided to do everything in makes it very interesting. It's like a almost jarringly different as far as the games are concerned. And I mean, I don't know, we have some great games ahead of us. So I agree that it's not been a waste of time, and I've enjoyed it so far. But
no, I don't. And the greatest thing about the show is that it showed me podcasting, which has now become my favorite side sort of thing to do. Thing is, I've taken on too many shows.
Yeah.
And I only put that upon myself. Maybe I'll feel different when Godzilla ends, because Godzilla's going to end before this show will.
Oh, yeah.
Which is crazy. I'm halfway through with Godzilla, or almost halfway. I'm almost to the same point in the Godzilla podcast that I am with Ultimate Final Fantasy, because the Godzilla podcast, for the most part, save a couple months in here or there, we've been able to finish a Godzilla movie every 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing compared to beating a fucking Final Fantasy game. We're talking 2 hours versus, 13 days I have in 14 now? Almost 2 weeks. Not that I'm complaining, there's plenty of content, but jeez.
And it's funny, keep adding these ideas for new podcasts on the network, and it's I can only do everything if I decided to just quit everything and only podcast and hope that people put up enough funds in Patreon to keep me alive.
Yeah.
So there were ideas in that survey I brought up earlier. They were what shows would you be interested in listening to? I think most people on the network, they're primarily listening for me or you, but we do have other people on the network that are creating a new show, and hopefully people get to appreciate that. But I put, there's Dragon Quest podcast. We played D&D on Nude Clan twice now, and people seem to really enjoy it. Some people hate it, but some people really enjoy it. So Cameron playing with the idea of doing a D&D podcast. Believe it or not, the most highly anticipated podcast out of all the lists was the Caleb Schweiss show, which was an answer that I put as kind of a throwaway, but people are interested in hearing what the Caleb Schweiss show would be.
Yeah.
We have all these podcast ideas, and it's just I have to beat so many Final Fantasies twice.
Yeah.
How am I going to have time?
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks because on one hand we have, whereas before we didn't have Nude Clan, so we only had Final Fantasy to get through. But it's almost not fair to even bring that up as a point, because we didn't finish the games quickly then either. We were sluggish once we hit Final Fantasy IV on. So now it's just almost like a variety for the spice of life sort of thing, which is what I brought up earlier with the series as a whole. It makes it so fun to go through. wow, man, this third-person shooter is awful for a third-person shooter, but it's a change of pace, at least. It's something fresh that I get to play. It's like, man, I played Crisis Core, which was different, but it was just a button mash event, and now I'm playing this third-person shooter with the worst controls ever, as far as I know.
No, only up to that point did you know bad third-person shooter controls, but then later there was Armored Core for Answer.
Oh, well, that's...
And then there was Star Wars Bounty Hunter.
I think Bounty Hunter... Okay, actually, you know what? Now it has worse controls. So, okay, not the worst, but pretty damn painful. But still, like it was something different, and it wasn't like a super long, like 40-hour shooter that just dragged me through the dirt, kind of a thing. But I don't know. It's good. So I mean, I don't know. And the thing is what are you gonna say?
Are you of the opinion? Because I'm of the opinion that we should double time these games. Now I know that you're in crazy nude clan. I have to beat more games than Craig mode. I think that would actually help you a little bit. I do wonder if your personal life can handle it. But would you be willing to go double time on these games? Try to beat them every 2 weeks, unless they're really long games, and then beat them once a month.
Every 2 weeks? For how long of a game? I mean...
So what we used to do, because of my school schedule, that I don't have anymore, because I graduated, what we used to do, and you hated this, by the way. You hated how long this was. You wanted to beat these games faster, if you remember back. Someone will be able to pull it out from a previous episode.
I recall.
If the game was under 30 hours, we would beat it in a month, or we would try to beat it in a month. There were some months in there that we decided to, I say we, it was probably me, decided to take their sweet time beating one of the games. Then if it were over 30 hours, then we would beat it every 2 months. What I am saying is that we do it double time. So if it's under 30 hours, beat it in 2 weeks. If it's over 30 hours, beat it in 4 weeks.
Oh, man.
So you'd be basically looking at a review every other week. In theory. Unless someone gets stuck on a final boss, which is very... it's quite possible.
I don't know. I think it sounds appealing, and I mean, even if we were to do that, we're looking at a bare minimum. If we beat everything that we have left in 2 week increments, we'd be looking at another
year and a half. Yeah. So like discussing this doesn't mean that we're not going to be doing the show in a month. It means that we're going to be not doing the show at the very earliest, without any MMO interference, which will happen. Totally will.
Without any delays, which will happen. We can't even record on time, for God's sake, let alone finish a 40-hour Final Fantasy game. We would be looking at a 4.5 to 5 year overall UFF project, probably closer to 5 years total. I don't know. I think we could try. We could try doing something like that. Amerlene mentions going bi-weekly to help with the...
Shinra really hated that idea.
Yeah, and I don't know if I like the idea so much either. I mean, I like doing them. I like doing them every week, and I feel like we have strong enough segments other than reviews that we can carry it out every other week. I mean, crap, we have like a 7-person backlog on the episode invites.
Oh, yeah, that's right. No, but those would be good to have on those every other week.
Yeah, they could be. But I mean, at the same time, I'm not necessarily in a rush to get through the games, and I feel like it might only be, it might be a 20-hour game to beat Final Fantasy, blah, 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 Final Fantasy Explorers.
Tactics A2 or whatever.
Yeah, or Tactics A2, but I mean, that's not playing around with the game
We don't actually even know those times yet. I haven't looked them up.
No, we don't. Or like a World of Final Fantasy. Like, I don't think the game is that long to beat. I think Craig said it was maybe 30 hours. But if I want to platinum the game, which is something I want to do for all of the FFs, just because it's like a nice little, you did everything, great job, pat on the back sort of a thing. It makes me feel like I've truly experienced the game, unless it's Final Fantasy XV, in which case I can experience 3/4 of the game and all the hard stuff is optional. I just feel like it's more of a more rewarding of an experience. So I don't know if the timeline would really work for what I want out of it. In the end, which is...
It is funny to hear you say that, because I remembered, like, when I was, complaining about school and how much time I had, and I didn't have much time that I wanted to play video games and wanted to do other stuff with. It's funny to hear you kind of go the opposite. Not on the platinum thing. That's a newer thing, because we weren't even playing PS4 games when we had this discussion, I don't think, until FF10.
No. Yeah.
So it is what made you change your mind?
It's not so much changing my mind as much as it is I've always tried to do a good chunk of extra stuff. Like in Final Fantasy III, I tried to do a bunch of the optional fights. Some of them I was never strong enough to actually get through, but I still tried to do it. And I just feel like there's so much to be had from each of the Final Fantasy games that it's almost an injustice to not at least dabble into what optional stuff interests me. I mean, we talked about great side quests just a couple weeks ago, and I feel like, was that last week? Jesus, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, a week ago, we talked about great side quests in games, and I think that the side quests often make the game. I mean, Final Fantasy XII, without the hunts, without the rare game, without the bestiary, what is the game? Like, the gameplay's fun, but for what? For the 30 hours it takes to beat the main campaign? Well, that's not that great. That's not that much entertainment. It's not an overwhelmingly positive experience necessarily. The story is kind of boring. So the gameplay, the optional fights, all of those hunts, the Isomat, the Hellworm, the Elder Worm, all of that good stuff is sort of optional, and very optional for most of it. And I think that's because of the value that's present in the optional content. I've felt the need to actually go through it, whereas before with certain games, like maybe the first FF, not that there's much in the way of optional content as far as I know. In our version there wasn't jack, or at least the PS1 version wasn't shit. As far as optional stuff, it was, there's a hole in the wall here, and you get the mass immune, and then you tear shit up, kind of a thing. And like FF13, they've got their hunts, well, not as quality, still optional things to try out, still other ways to max out your Crystarium. So yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily a time. Okay, I don't know if it's a shift in how quickly I want to get done with it, but I think there's been a shift in what exactly I want out of the games themselves. I could still do it faster than a month if I really, really put my mind to it, but I've got more going on in my life right now, so I think that would make it a little tougher. So that's why I don't know about the time commitment itself, but I do think it's been more of a switch of what I'm willing to take on with each game. Or, yeah, more than anything. And I think other than like 9 and a couple things in 5, I've done just about everything along the way. So, I don't know. I just do it a lot faster and a lot harder, I think. Like my FF7 gameplay time was like 70 hours or something like that during this last playthrough.
Can you remember, though, that we did the first 3 Final Fantasies in like 4 weeks?
Yeah, it was sick.
And I'm kind of almost like pine for that sort of thing again, just plowing through it like that. But I guess me and you just have different goals. Wonder if we can meet in the middle, like beat it every 3 weeks. or something as a separate goal. So this is a state of the podcast episode, guys. This is us just talking about the podcast, and there's no need to be alarmed. I don't think the show will go on. I'm not gonna just walk away and be like, done.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's not really it's not burnout like it sounds, really. It's just a discussion on what the show was and what the show is and what we kind of want it to be. I don't know. And yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm fine. I'm fine with it the way it is now. I'm fine with us picking it up. I mean, we've got a long road ahead of us. I mean, either way, we're going to be playing a lot of Final Fantasy for the next couple of years. So I don't think it's a big deal either way. But I do believe that that there's no, how do I say this? There's no like right time to do it, or like no desired timeline for me. It's just when it's done, it's done. And that's something I used to do with the podcast itself. Like it wasn't, we're sitting at like an hour and a half. We should probably end now. It's okay, we've done what we have in front of us for this week. Now the episode is done.
We allowed ourselves to have 43-minute episodes.
Yeah. So it's funny that I say that because it was the opposite for sometimes. It was like a shorter podcast than it is now, and now I'm like, okay, when it's done, it's done. Whereas before, when it's done meant like, oh, we don't have any questions. All right, well, we'll see you guys later. Boom. 45 minutes. The first episode was like, what, 30 minutes or some shit? And then the second episode was only like 40, 50. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just like with the episodes, I feel like when the games are done, the games are done. Like when it's time to review, it's time to review. I don't think for me, putting a timeline on it doesn't really help that much, other than maybe hey, we've been working on Final Fantasy VII we've been working on Final Fantasy VII for about 2 months. Maybe we should finish Final Fantasy VII.
Was it FF5 that just took forever?
I think we did take some time on 5. 4 and 5 is when we started to slow down, I think. No, actually, you know what? I think it was 5, actually. Yeah, I think 5 was like 2 months. And it's not even that long of a game either. So, like, I don't know what the hell we were doing. But
I think you could see with at least my schedule when the summer ended.
Yeah.
With that one. And I had to figure out how to play these games and still do school and still do all the other stupid projects.
I mean, we beat Final Fantasy 1, recorded that episode, and then the next week we had Final Fantasy 2 beaten. Like, that was the summer of Final Fantasy as far as I'm concerned. Like, we crushed the shit out of those games in the beginning. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel like there is a time, and that time comes when that time comes.
I don't know how. So when you had that delivery job, so obviously now I work as a mail guy.
You have a similar job to what I had when the show was a baby. Yes.
Similar job. Okay. How did you, now I know you eventually like couldn't take it anymore and quit, but how did you handle all this time and physical energy that it took? Because maybe I'm just having problems with this because I'm like, I can't see myself having time playing Nude Clan games and UFF games, which of course UFF comes first, and then gotta record all the podcasts, including watching the Godzilla movie once a week.
And it's crazy. It takes a lot of time, and not that I would ever complain about recording. I mean, it's 12:30, and I'm going to be up in like 5 hours to do a 14-hour marathon, and I don't regret it at all. I'm going to regret it when my ass aches from sitting on the floor for 14 hours, but we'll talk about that then. Like, it's I fucking A, man. I love doing the shows. I do. But I feel you. The big thing that I would do is you basically have to take your personal life and you have to just throw it away. And I know it might sound like we're doing it for the podcast, but you need to tell yourself, you need to convince every fiber of Joe that you're throwing away all of your social life because your job is in the way. If you blame it on the job, it's all okay because it's your career. Just say my career is demanding as you sit and play Final Fantasy.
Okay. On top of that, trying to get a movie made, was thinking I might have to write another draft of the script, and I was like, how am I going to be able to write and play these freaking games and do the podcasts and still work a job that takes 12 to 13 hours of my day? And so the whole time I was just, last week, it was just like, oh my gosh, I can't do all this. This is too much. And so, yeah, a part of it definitely is me being like, I got to trim some fat. And maybe that means going double time on UFF so that it only lasts a year and a half longer instead of 3 years. And I think it would be, frankly, I think it would be a better show if we had a review every other week. I think it would be better for the listeners. But, you know, some people like us just shooting the shit. So that's another thing. Yeah, I saw that in that survey. People honestly liked us just screwing around, which was a surprising result.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they like us enough to do a little survey for us, clearly they like us regardless of what we do, unless we insult their family or something like that. Like Shinru's probably going to be a little pissed at us for ripping his Disturbed song to Sound of Silence question to a new asshole or two earlier, but you know, it's all
overproduced, auto-tuned crap. That's what it is.
Seriously, but I don't know. Yeah, it's just you're just gonna have to, I don't know, just set aside the time. I mean, it's got to be something you want to do, and I mean, it clearly is, or else you wouldn't be doing it 3 years down the road.
I wouldn't be. So okay, I'm gonna try to do something new with my job. I'm not gonna show up. Okay, so we have this sorting facility, and the interesting people who work at the sorting facility are really slow at getting all the stuff sorted out. It's like when you were working for the bread store, if there were people in there that were loading up your piles of bread and they were super slow at it. So you come there and then it's like a 2.5 hour thing, even though it should only take 1 hour, because you got all the stuff in your truck and you're just waiting on them to get the last things in there. I'm thinking I'm going to leave a little later for that in the morning. And then as soon as I can, which should only be a couple paychecks away, I got to move out and into Layton, which is where my delivery area is at. And that would also save me like 30 minutes of commute time as well. So I'm thinking of ways to trim the work time down as close to 8 hours as it can be. It just pays too well for me to quit at the moment. I need to save up money. So
yeah,
what it is.
I mean, there are a lot of things you can do to trim time, and I mean, just talking to other people that do the job can help a lot. There's a lot of little tips and tricks that those guys probably know that allow them to just burn through it. I mean, by the time do you ever go back after you're done, like back to the depot or whatever?
No, I go straight home.
Okay, so I guess you don't know when they get back.
It's rush hour to get from Layton to Ogden, even though it's normally 20 minutes, is 40 minutes.
Yeah, see, you got to move out. Plus, moving out will also allow you to not feel guilty about having to play video games, and you can just go home and it's like, you know what? I busted my ass for 10 hours today. I'm going to sit down and fucking relax and do what I want. Kind of a thing. That's the throwing your social life or your family out the window. Like, it's easier when you have a shit family like me, where like they're all fucks and you're the only like semi-decent person amongst them all. That definitely makes it easier, but you can still work with what you got. Like, you just got to tell yourself, okay, I earned the right to go home and sit on my ass for a few hours before I have to go to bed and wake up and do it all over again. Mm-hmm. And saving time by like moving closer to where you're at will obviously only benefit you in the long run. I mean, even if it's the 30 minutes a day, that's That's 2.5 hours a week, 2.5 hours extra that you get to do basically whatever you want with. That could be 2.5 more hours of Final Fantasy. That could be 2.5 hours of relaxing with a show, doing whatever it takes. I mean, for me, I know if shit's not working, as far as if I've got something to do that's more important than gaming, it always just nags at me. It's I can still do the fun thing. But it's always in the back of my mind that, fuck, man, I haven't cleaned this fucking house in a week, and there's just shit everywhere, and I had 20 beers last night, and the cans are just fucking lying around, and I gotta play this game, though. I gotta play this game, and having that extra 30 minutes might alleviate some of that, and I know that's I know one of your things is you just start feeling like a piece of shit when you play too much.
I do, yeah. I get into deep depression if it's past 4 hours of gaming in one day. Yeah. I'm oh man, I'm just a deadbeat horrible person.
On the 14 hour of 14, I'm just man, I should probably
I'm hard on other people, man. I am way harder on myself.
Yeah, I was man, I should probably just eat this bottle of aspirin. I should probably just do that right now. Fucking, what did I just do? What did I just do? I just fucking nothing for 14 hours. Just nothing. I didn't even get that far. I'm not even done. I'm not even close. I'm not even close to being done. But, yeah, I know what you mean. I obviously didn't eat the aspirin unless this is some sort of fucked up afterlife where all I do is continually fail on my Atkins diet, which would be a horrible fate. Just get fatter and fatter until I explode like the Nutty Professor.
So I was thinking of doing something else as well. So I have 2 days off per week, and I was thinking about making one gay.
There we go.
Whoops, just a little slip up there. I was thinking about taking one day and making that video game day, and I would play 12 hours, and I would do 6 hours of a Nude Clan game that I'm working on until it's finished, and then UFF after that, or vice versa, and streaming the whole day and just making it's Joe's Sunday play day. And then not worrying about it the rest of the week, and I could work on movie stuff outside of that one day, plus the podcast days.
Right.
I don't know. Would that be enough time? That would be 6 hours of gaming a week per show. I think for Nude Clan it'd be pretty easy because we usually pick shorter games, but UFF, 6 hours times 4, 24, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not enough.
It's not enough.
No. Not if you're trying to trim some time on UFF. Definitely not.
What if I made 14 hours of video games every Sunday?
Well, if you upped it to 1 hour, then, yeah, that would help, but...
And I was going to I was I should start dating.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the thing you got to not do. And earlier, yes, my girlfriend does count in this, Emerline, and she doesn't count as part of my life that I'm throwing away. But it does play a factor.
Yeah, but you don't have the delivery job anymore. You got a regular 8 to 5, and then you also... your commute to that job is 12 minutes.
Yes, dude. There are some times where a Metallica song will not finish by the time I get to work.
Oh, so less than 9.
I can get there in 7.5. That's the record.
That's insane.
Yeah, so there is no commute. It's awesome.
I wish I could do that, but they let me take the truck home, so I don't spend any gas or use my own vehicle. Not that I have one right now, but I don't have to use my own vehicle at this job, which is amazing. And it's a really that's another reason to keep this, because that would also save me a bunch of money.
Right, yeah.
While I'm also earning way more money than I would have otherwise.
Right. So. Yeah, you should totally... You can come up with ways to reduce it. And maybe...
It might take 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that, but... I gotta be able to move out to Layton.
Yeah. Someone
get Craig to move in with me so that I don't have to pay as much in rent.
Yeah, make sure tweet him about it for sure. Yeah. So I mean, it's not I don't know. Kind of getting back to where we started with this thing. I do believe that we will be done regardless of whether or not we double time or increase our rate of reviews. For the Final Fantasy titles, I think we'll beat 16 even if we continue at the pace we're going. I don't see 16 coming out before 2020. To be completely honest, there's not a portion of me that even believes that to be feasible. Now, Square could prove me wrong, but they can't do it until they release Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is still a ways out, and also Kingdom Hearts 3.
What if they do the first time this has been done in video games, as far as I know of? What if they pull a Beyonce and just suddenly FF16 is on the shelf?
That would be nice.
There were no trailers for it, no nothing. That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be insane.
And then a bunch of like Final Fantasy news people, someone will get the hint that it was talked about on a podcast somewhere.
Yeah, and then we explode.
Yeah,
but right. It's possible. Gaming companies do release quickly after they announce. I mean, Rockstar kind of does that. At least it feels that way. I may be wrong about that. I don't know, but I think GTA 5 was released fairly quickly after they said, "Oh yeah, by the way, Grand Theft Auto 5." And it's like, "Oh shit!" And then it's like, "Oh, when's it coming out?" "Oh man, it's not even that long." And then boom, there it is, biggest game ever, as far as like amount sold in a 24-hour period, like more than any other piece of media it's ever existed. So, like, it's doable, but not from Square. They're too bureaucratic. They're too much of a lumbering giant at this point to even compete with our lumbering giant mode of UFF games. But I've got my old list here. The list that we came up with after we finished Vanilla Ultima Final Fantasy, where we discussed our times, or at least my times, in the FF games. I mean, right now I'm looking at a Final Fantasy X file that's 158 hours.
Jeez.
We've got a 77-hour, 28-minute Final Fantasy VII file, 36 hours and 15 minutes of 8, 133 hours and 11 minutes of Final Fantasy XII. I did do everything in that game, so that's pretty sweet. Oh, this is cute. 3 days and 2 hours of Final Fantasy XI. That's adorable.
Oh, that's nice. Is that your time?
That was my time for the original story. Yes.
Bastok.
For Bastok, yeah, 3 hours. That is the biggest lie of all time.
Wow.
Turns into.
How many times were you dead?
How much
time?
Oh, probably like an hour.
Yeah. So it felt at the beginning.
Yeah, totally.
Only 3 days.
Yeah, man. And then for Final Fantasy XIV at this time, when we finished up to 2.55, I mean, I had 7 days, 19 hours. So it's not like we're not grinding the crap out of these games, even at the rate we've been going. So, I don't know. It's... I don't know.
Oh, man. The MMOs really add a lot of that time, don't they?
They do, and I think they're fun though. They're fun in their own way. And even when they're story heavy, a lot of times you can get through that story pretty quickly. It doesn't. You can see where you could make it faster. I mean, obviously, like with 14, like I'm like, okay, well, if I were to sum up this, I would have said, this line of dialogue with this character wouldn't exist. This character and this character would be combined with this other character, and they would have said 2 lines instead of 15, and I would have had a sweet cutscene to explain it anyway. So, 40 quests, and then you're done. kind of a thing. But like with 11, I mean, we had full on expansions that we knocked out in a week's time. Like it was nothing.
Oh, and then we had to get imprimaturs.
Yeah, imprimaturs. Yeah, we got rocked by these sick requirements that just blindsided us. And it was just like, oh man, we're nuking this thing. We're destroying FF11. We're so far. Dude, that last expansion took so much out of us. Like, it was actually hard. Like, the game was difficult all of a sudden. Like, I was like, shit, this is like where we're supposed to be, and it is not easy. And it's not like it was easy before necessarily. It just wasn't brutal. It wasn't like, oh, well, you got to log in and do your daily imprimatur prayer where you cash them in and you do a quest and you pray to your 11 gods that you're able to fucking go on.
Oh, yeah, because it was a random number, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was random. There's
the amount you needed.
You know, and it was a huge fucking range, too. It was like, oh, it's between 40 and 120. I'm like, oh, my God. You're telling me it could be like 3 weeks or a year to get this done, kind of a thing? Like, obviously, it's not a total year, but sick. Emerline asks if we think the MMO is the problem. I don't know if it's the problem.
There's a reason that we're doing the 14 hours of 14. For me, it is somewhat of the problem because I don't feel like I'm making any progress. Go ahead, Choice.
I don't know if it's so much the problem, but it is the time sink. Because, I mean, 133 hours of 12, that's a lot of time, right? But we do have, just with my last playthrough, before we got to the expansions, and I think I'm around 12 days, 13 days of 14 now. And the 7 days I had before, that's 168 hours right there. So that's 30 hours more than my FF12 time, just with the vanilla Final Fantasy XIV, Realm Reborn content, which is about a third of the game, as far as I can tell. So it's not necessarily the problem, but I think it is. It might be the problem for Joe, though. It might be and it does feel like a burnout to me, because my goal with the show was to beat all the Final Fantasy games. Like, that's been the goal for a long time. So having a game that takes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of in-game time does throw a bit of a wrench in things when the second biggest game is 150 hours after that, or the third biggest after 1411. We have a drop off from 20 days to 14 days to 5 days, like 4 days. And that's pushing it. And then the smallest one we have at 21 hours for me. And then the next one at 25 or 24. And so, yeah, maybe it is part of the problem. Fuck, I don't know.
I think honestly, largely it is. I think it took out 6 months of last year and the year before that as well. Just MMO time, and past like the 2 months that it would take to do the first part.
Yeah, I would say it's not a problem in itself,
but we put it on ourselves.
We did put it on ourselves, and it does. I don't know, because we are kind of goal-oriented people. I mean, when I have a list of things I want to accomplish all of them, and it kind of does hurt when one of them takes 5 times longer than the surrounding 10 to 20 items. It's like, it's just one checkbox, man, but it's going to be a week of actual play. That's sick. For that one little tick, and then the next game we play is going to be 3 hours for a tick. It's like, it's sick, but it is a game of averages, I suppose. So,
yeah, I don't believe those Crystal Chronicle games are supposed to be very long. So that's good news. At least it is for me, who like, yeah, I'm a very goal-oriented person. I get excited when we get reviews, or one of reviews on Horizon, because the game was beaten. I think that the reviews are mostly our best episodes, and so I kind of dig it when we're flying through them. So
yeah, no, this right
the
here,
MMOs really do pull it out of me.
This episode today is our best episode to date. All right, That's how you gotta. Okay, first of all, you gotta lie to yourself and tell yourself that you don't need your family or anybody else in your life.
Okay,
just your job and your video games, and then you need to tell yourself
I only need money and video games.
And then you need to tell and then you need to tell yourself that this episode is the greatest episode ever. And then next week,
episode.
Exactly. When next week's episode happens, no other episode could have ever possibly been as good as that episode that you just released. You do that, and you're fine.
Joe, bring back Mythic Origins? Oh, excuse me. Okay, on the Twitch stream it says, Joe, bring back Mythic Origins, by the way. LOL. I didn't do Mythic Origins. That was Schweiss.
Yeah, those were mine.
Bring them back, Schweiss.
I'll bring them back. It's just, I've done all the ones that really interest me at this point, so I'll have to do...
Almost everything in Final Fantasy has some sort of mythic origin in the real world.
It does. I should probably do a Norse mythology one just for Skull, and Amerlane will obviously enjoy it as well. You know, I think I'm going to do one of those in the next few weeks. It's been a long time, to be honest, and there are so many mythic origins within the Final Fantasy series, but I don't know.
Yeah, I do the history of Square Enix. And when I do those, I have to actually do a full write-up, and that means I'm not working 13 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll do some more of those. I haven't done those in a while. Those are a lot of fun. I think it's really cool learning those. But yeah, MMOs do kind of grind you. Because at the end of the day, it is a list of games. The goal is, it's the goal, and sure,
we get done with Stormblood in the next 2 weeks. And it's not because I'd hate Stormblood or anything. It's just, I just want it done and moving on, man.
Yeah, the idea is to complete the games. That's the goal. I mean, that and consume as much Final Fantasy media as we possibly can along the way, which is a lot, by the way. There's a shitload of it out there, but
we don't have nearly as many of those as we do games left.
No, we really don't. It's kind of sad. Which is another reason why stepping it up wouldn't be a bad thing, because we'd have less reminiscing podcast episodes where we talk about the podcast, which is fucking weird.
Well, this was a tradition, and then we stopped doing it because I guess we had content to put out or something.
Yeah, something like that. We were playing games and reviewing.
I decided to bring it back tonight and talk about the podcast itself.
Right.
So this is State of the Podcast 3 or 4, I think.
I think it should be 3. If we skipped it at 150, then yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to change about the show in the next 50 episodes?
Not really. I mean, I might. I don't know. I want to get more. Patreon invites. I think those are a lot of fun. I also want to try to do a little bit more with each of them. Maybe try to get some kind of a prize. Go back and listen to all of the episodes that we've done, and maybe send everybody a little cool trinket for Final Fantasy or some of our merch or something like that. If we can get someone to print the fucking stuff, that would be great. But if I can find a way, I think it'd be cool to do that. Just make it a little more interactive, I guess. The only other thing, I don't know.
Segments around.
Maybe change a few things around. I kind of think we have a good thing going right now. I think it's been pretty solid. I'll definitely change the artwork here in the next little bit once we finish up.
That's true. There will be a new logo here very soon.
Yeah, season 3, a very short season 3 from the look of things.
Maybe it's 7 games.
Yeah, for all the tactics.
Consider
stuff.
that very short. It's shorter than the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, the last 2 seasons have been years.
Yeah, that's true.
But pulling a Game of Thrones, only 7 episodes, only seven games, right?
Please.
But yeah, I don't know, that's probably the only thing I would change. What do you think?
Well, I I can't think of anything right now, but I'll certainly have a bunch of ideas. I think I am ready to go to bed. I don't know if it's clear, guys. I am tired. I am 3 hours past my bedtime right now. I am really just dying right now. And I know that some of you guys may be scared, but don't be. I'm just really tired. And thus more inclined to talk about negative things.
Yeah. And like we said, if it takes 3 weeks to do an FF from here on out, we had 40 something left, you said?
Yeah, 46, I think.
46 times 3. So we got 40 and 3, which is 120, and then 18 more, 138. That's 138 weeks. If we do 3 weeks, that's a long time. So even if we did step it up, it's not like we're going to run out of stuff to talk about, and it's not like the show is going to be compromised or anything like that, and we're not trying to burn through it just to be done. And honestly, guys, even if we did finish, we're not going to not podcast. Like, we're going to have other shit that we want to talk about. Nothing satisfies me more than talking about things that I enjoy in this world.
There you go.
So keep that in mind. And yeah, I think that's it. The state of the podcast is strong. Podcast continues to grow, continues to thrive. We thank you all for your wonderful contributions to the show and the other shows in the network.
We had a good month, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was a good month. A lot of people checking out the FF12. I got some great FF12 videos on YouTube, by the way. If you guys need help with the rare game, I'm not sure exactly how many the trial version of 12 gives you, how much as far as rare game, because I haven't finished it yet. I got my ass handed to me around like stage 30 or some shit. So there's a lot of great stuff there. Yeah. You know the rest of the links. Give us a call, 385-204-3921. That's 385-204-3921. Get on my ass if you haven't gotten anything from Patreon. And shit, yeah. We'll see you guys next week.
Try to enjoy the grind.
Yeah. Please enjoy the grind.
This has been another production of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast. The show was produced by Joseph DeGolier and Caleb Schweiss, with music and editing by Joseph DeGolier, parodies and clips from their respective authors, of course. You can get all of our episodes as well as our Let's Plays at ultimafinalfantasy.com. You can also contact us on Twitter at UFF Podcast, as well as our contact page on our website. Be sure to subscribe and review our podcast. Your reviews may get read on the show, and look forward to the next episode of Ultima Final Fantasy, the Ultimate Final Fantasy Podcast.